Good evening, peoples. Didn't say good peoples, but you're all good, or you should be. Okay. All right. So I'm on Coney and I am on PLTY for YIELDMAX daily review and analysis. All right. So let's jump into Coney. Should be looking at that. Not much happened. It added 25,000 shares. Okay. Wait till you see how much Pulte added. Oh my God. Massive, the biggest I've ever seen percentage jump. But that's because it's, as I said, it's a $7 payout. And I haven't watched YIELDMAX every single day or payouts, but I don't think anybody's had a $6 payout. And so having a $7 payout's massive. Again, I made that point about the fact that it's a $70 stock. It's that group that they started going to $50. They used to be $20. So in some fairness, Misty had some massive payouts of $4. And $4 on a $20 stock. Naturally, that stock ran to 45. Well, Pulte's ran from 50 to 95 back into the 50. I think at one point intraday it was 45. Um, and now it's back at 70. Well, it's actually today at 67, but I'll get into that in a minute. All right, let's do coin and Coney. So not a lot of movement in the stock. It did go down 0.91. We went down 0.57. So love that fact because on a big down day, well, in some fairness, these income funds usually, they say you have the same downside. Well, you have about 95% of the downside because even if you're going down and you sold some calls, you're going to make a little bit of money on the sold calls. So your value goes up, but you never want to buy one of these unless you're bullish on the underlying. Do not chase yield. Please be aware of that. And you smart people, I see it in the comments say, oh, I'm not buying it. I think it's too expensive now. And I follow that generally. I did that. I mean, I traded PLTY and I bought it when it came out in the 50 range and I cashed out all of my position at 90. I put a stop in, okay, for Pulte and got out at 90 because I saw it retracing likely to 70 to 75. I didn't nail it because it went on down from 70. Actually, I bought it at 73, 71, somewhere in there. It bounced to 75, wasn't going to sell. I was happy that I cut that $20 gap. And then it proceeded to go down further. I bought some more, but I just said it's such a bargain, I have to. And now we've revisited the 70s and we dropped to 67. All right, on coin. I'm just not as familiar with coin and Coney because I was out of it until a few weeks ago and said this is just a bargain down here at this range for Coinbase, and this was before the inclusion in the S&P. So I'm up on my position, and my thinking is, guys, just to tell you before I do this analysis, I always rant on things. I look at BTC and say I'm positive, right? It's 110. I think it's got 125, 135 in the sights. But look, don't go out and buy it because Bruce said that. Get your own conviction, do your own due diligence. And but having said that, the Misties and the Coinbases and a lot of other BTC oriented YBTC BITO should do well when it moves up, some better than others, right? Um, and Coinbase, again, I reckon it, and I told this before in another video, but I want to remind you, I reckon that there's a gold rush going on. In this case, the gold rush is BTC. And this is like a general store in California in the 1850s, 18 whatever years, 1850s, 1870s that the gold rush was. So if you had a general store, you sold picks and shovels and foods and things like that to all the miners. You didn't have to worry about individually mining and whether you were successful at it, right? And so Coinbase has a platform that when people want to buy cryptos, they go there. So that's why I reckon it to that type of thing. It doesn't always move one to one for that scenario, but it should do well. Just the fact it got included in the S&P 500 is wonderful. Now, we've been fairly flat, so let's get into the specifics. So that's my rant, guys. Done. All right. So 25,000 shares. It had a sell-off of shares a while ago, a big sell-off. And so it's only 0.19, and they didn't make any trades because it's not enough money that they have to do something. A lot of times, like PLTY, when I do it, they made a bunch of trades because they got, I'm going to leak it, 20% additional shares of their base bought into. People are chasing the $7 yield. In this case, I happen to think it's reasonable because they're in a good underlying stock. Could it go down a lot if the market goes down a lot? Absolutely. So never low, keep some powder dry, as they say. All right. So not a lot on the cash and the net assets. We went down. We went up 25,000 shares. We went down a little bit here. Let's walk through that math, okay? So they trade, I need to tell you this, it went to 258.99 from 263. So we're down 1%. This went from like 875 or 6 down to 870. Whoopie-doo. Not a lot, all right? And they chose and are still choosing, and I think it's damn smart of the YIELDMAX fund managers, kudos. They didn't buy any insurance because I think they said, hey, we got the inclusion in the S&P. We got that massive spike from 240s on coin to 266. And then since then, we've gone up a day, down a day. They got the news about the leak, right? That somebody hacked into it and they threatened them and said, we want a $20 million ransom or we're going to release the personal information, social security numbers, all this kind of stuff on the subscribers, right? The users of Coinbase. So if they were in a different country, it wouldn't be social security, but it's all the personal details that they would know. And the company said no. Kudos to them. I thought they handled it great. We're not going to do it, but we are going to take that 20 million and we're going to offer it as reward to anybody that can help us capture you. You know what? And I think that's smart because you never, if you pay, then they're just going to hack again. No matter if it's a one-upsmanship. You encrypt, you protect, and then the hackers keep working and they hack you, and then you encrypt better and you hide further, and eventually they get to the point. That's why the dark web, guys, is full of it, and it's criminal activity. Criminals chase money. And I know you guys know that. So, smart people, it's a game of one-upmanship. All right, let's get into the rest of this. So, again, on these, by not having insurance, we save the premiums. Okay. And I think it's okay. It's proving to be okay. We're going in the right direction. But just a little bit of down movement. I added something here for you guys. And whoops, this. Okay. So I'm giving you all this. Normally I go in, I say, oh, they closed out this and they bought this one. And okay, so they didn't have any trades. However, that doesn't mean that their existing spreads and their existing synthetic didn't have losses or gains. So I thought I would just track it this way. Right, I'm telling you, we got about 95 cents, including the active profit, which is dropping, right? It's dropped 8 cents. So I can get rid of these little comments. I built it down here. So, but what did it do from a perspective? Well, the synthetic lost 11 million. Okay. It went from 55 to 44, but remember you have some cost on top of that. How much did you have to pay? You had to pay more than what you did. So this gain is all of the gain, but you have some costs underlying. So I'm only showing it as a 2 million profit. This is already sold out stuff, right? And then we had a big on the spreads last week. We got our butt kicked on the spreads. We lost about 81 cents. This week because remember it flew up. It ran by all of the calls. In this case, we got no insurance, so that's a little bit of cost that we didn't have to pay. And we're at 258. As long as we don't go to 265, and even 265 wouldn't hurt us much, we finish gaining it. So we got another 8 million. The difference between 10.8, we've collected, paper value of 10 million. We sold everything for 18 million, right? What you don't want to see when it flies by everything, we had a number over here, and and this number was triple or 4 times. So you lose your butt. But with the synthetic going down, you always want everything to be bullish. That was a 4 cent net loss on the day without any trades, just activity. So I still got us, guys. We got 2 more days. So if we collect this other, which we should get another 7.5 million in the door. Okay, that's about 4 cents. So we're going to end up somewhere in the 90 cent, high 90s, maybe a dollar. If I'm doing an estimate, early estimate on payout, I'm saying somewhere in 70 to 78 cents. They're not going to pay the full amount. So that I guess that's what I'm telling you. Now, what's the payments been? I talked about this before. We had a 65, okay, in early May. Yeah, I know we're going to pay twice in May, guys. When you pay monthly, you get 13 payments a year, and that extra month will end up being May because this thing declares on 28 on Wednesday next week and then pays on 30. So we're talking a little increase, right? But look, this was a big jump. We won't get that $1.04, I don't think. But again, look, what does YIELDMAX do sometimes? Look what if I was YIELDMAX and I realized that they went 70442, right? I had a 638.5, call it 639. So they went over me and I said they could pay 7, they could pay 8, they could pay high fives. I just went in the middle of the sixes. But I'm happy as you know what that they paid 70442. Wait till you see my analysis of what that did to the greed out there in the marketplace for cash. Oh my God. As I said to you, they got over 20% the amount of shares bought yesterday in the fund. It's over 1 million shares. It's over 1,200,000 shares because they announced that amount of money. So myself, other YouTubers that are out there telling the world, people and just people that isn't even YouTubers, just reading, right? That analysis or reading what they're going to pay, people go, oh my gosh, I'll spend, $70 for the stock. Now, look at this. It closed at 67. Guess where it's going to open up, guys? You can buy Pia. I know I'm not there yet, so I had to just wrap up and jump over there, but I get excited. Let me do one or two more things and then I'll get right into it. So I got 70 to 80 cent range right now on Coney. All right, the chart here is just stayed flatline. And then here and here, we made that big move up, then we came down, now we've moved up, now we're down, right? But not a lot. This isn't today. So I'm saying, hey, will we fill this gap? Probably. Not absolutely. This thing could run up here and then come back down and fill it. Not all gaps are filled and not all gaps are filled quickly. But I have a feeling it might. It depends. Bitcoin is moving up, but the general market is showing me that it's topping. Again, it's showing me probabilities. Doesn't mean it is. We could go on to new highs in all the indexes. All right, guys, let's jump over to Palantir. PLTY. All right. So what did it do? Well, it's got 7,175,000 shares, up 1,225,000 people. Percentage move 20.59. I hope I'm not hurting anybody's ears when I get going. Um, because I turned my volume up. I had about 3 comments the other day, and it ended up being something that was happening in one of my render things that it was turned down because it sounded great when I reviewed it. And then after I render, what happens is I render my video, then I stick it in a different rendering tool that adds that little, 4-second beginning, targeted wealth creation, blah, 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 right? It's 4 seconds. And I could use something else. So it's a re-render to stick those two together, basically, the one in front of the other. And in that process, the volume setting of that render had dropped and I didn't notice it. You just got, and then sometimes it's my OBS. For last year, it was my microphone. I got the microphone fixed. OBS had a weird thing where you got twice, like I have a camera that I don't use because OBS does it, but I have a camera that if I go do interviews, I use that camera and it has a microphone in the camera. It works great. I don't have any issues. But that was plugged into OBS. Then I plugged my really good headset that I paid a lot for, and somehow OBS, knowing it was a second um, attached but not being utilized in OBS, it was causing it to echo. It sounded like I was in a well. So I've gone through hell up and down. So I'm very sensitive to when people make comments. So apologize if I get all excited. I have a loud voice at times. So it's frustrating when my volume went low. All right, let's do what we need to do. Down 3.99. We're down from 126 to 120s, and we went from 70 to 67. Now remember, guys, this is going to drop 70442 in the pre-market on Thursday. So if you see that, understand it. Those of you that want to add, is it going to go lower? That's the $1,000,000 question. I don't know, but a lot of people like to buy. You also have to wait 27 days for your next declaration or 29 days for your next payment. All right, guys. So what else? I did not go in and do the little day thing, but there were a lot of trades in PLTY because of this amount of shares. I'll just walk you through a little bit. So naturally, this went down. This went down pretty much because it went down point-wise. We added 5,200, okay? You see right here, which we had to pay 8,476,000 to buy the calls, and we sold the puts for 3. So that difference is 4,800,000 something, right? So that's causing us that where we put all of the, we only have one current synthetic, it expires on 7/18. We're now 4.85 in the money, right? So we're above the 115, but at 126 it feels, but we have a long ways to go. So I don't see them doing anything right now. They already have the cash to pay the big $7 payout, and that'll all be fine. But you want that to repeat itself. You want them to be successful. So let's go look. Sorry about that, guys. Let's go back to holdings. So know that that dropped. Well, we also made a lot more money on this side of the equation. But what they did, and smartly, is their higher strikes. So they had like 6 over here, 6 strikes where they sold calls for this week. Well, the ones that were furthest out of the money, they're all listed down here. They went and took those off the table. So they had gotten 229. They bought them back for 13, collected $1,800,000. This is one where they took the insurance, a real high insurance off the table, and they rolled it out to 530 week, right? And when they did this, they rolled these out to the 530. So you had some small, but net, we made 2.695 because we made more money on the calls we bought back. For instance, we had sold this for 248, 3,000 shares, bought it back for 16 cents. Sold this one for 210, bought it back for 26 cents. And these ones where we had bought insurance, right, which happened, and actually this one we had sold for 75 and bought back for 4. Um, and that's actually a positive number here. Okay, but there were some where we just bought back the high price calls. The 143 was split across a couple. And so we did 3283, and then on this other one we did 5,000. I don't know which I got to fix that. But bottom line, that is correct on the math. So this number, I'm still tracking the old and showing you it's really not relevant. We're so far ahead of that game. I'll create a different tab altogether and I'll run these numbers. But remember, I'm just starting to tracking this on May 2nd. So I'll have us set up for by the time we get into June, right, for the next declaration and give you a total. But nobody, you'd be an idiot to do an estimate this far out. It's never. Now, however, I will do some technical analysis. So I will just mention on this, what's another small thing. Normally they keep these one-on-one. Now I mentioned on Coney that they're all sold calls and no insurance because I think that's saying we're absolutely sure this thing isn't going to run past our calls. And that was pretty decent because they were so far out. Well, look at this. We're in pretty good shape too. We got 2 days to trade. Our lowest call is 8.64 out of the money. Our next is 10.3 and 11.1. And it doesn't appear PLTY, okay, is going to drop Palantir, which these are all based on, is going to drop down, isn't going to run by these. Sorry. That's what you fear. You run by so you have insurance. And it could, so they keep insurance on here. And so what they did was they closed out their higher, their 135, etc. And those are the ones that all made them, a net almost 3 million. And then they wrote new ones, which I highlight by having 530 and change the color, but they're still weekly sold calls. So I imagine by tomorrow, they might buy these back early. They may wait till Friday morning, but at 13 cents and 11 cents, they could probably buy these if just by it staying the same as where it is for 6 cents and 5 cents or something. But we'll see what they do. And then whatever they take off here, they'll add more. But the one interesting thing, normally these are even or no insurance, but they now have a gap of 3283. So I double check this. They simply didn't put as much insurance on by 3,000 short. So there's 37 157 contracts when you add all these together that are sold, but their insurance is only 33,874. So, oops. You put a comma in there and you got to give it a little more room. Oh, and then it goes and adds a 0. It always does that when you let me clear that. Okay, I didn't even have to make my column so much bigger. Okay. So that I like it because they're spending less money and they didn't feel like they needed to. Because whenever you win all the money over here, you lose all the money over here. That's what happened. We don't think of insurance as lost money, but I mean, if you have a house and you've never had a fire and you bought fire insurance, I won't talk about California. But if you have fire insurance and you've had your home for 50 years and you look back and you say, oh my gosh, I spent, $300,000 on fire insurance over 50 years, whatever the number is. Well, you slept better at night. So That's how this is. This is a risky game when you get into options and the amount of money. So that's literally what a spread does. It just gives you that ability when you fly past here that all of a sudden, they only right now have up to 134. So at 4 points above that, they start making money on this guy and then this guy, and they try to correlate that. All right, so in Pulte, you know, this is what we made about 4 million there. We lost more in our synthetic. We probably lost like 2 to 1, maybe even 2.5 to 1. So I didn't track it at that. I do track how much they made on the spreads, and I could track how much they lost and put that in here. But it's so far away, I don't think it's that relative. I did show a chart additional. So I had been showing this cup and handle as a reminder to anybody that hadn't seen it. So a perfect cup, and then you have a handle. Sometimes you have a small handle and it just takes off. But the rule of thumb is measure the bottom. I'd probably put it around 72. I wouldn't go down to this little inter-day move. I would probably do about 72, and at the top would be about 120. Let's call it 122. It might be. So you've got a $50 move that projects to. You take the difference from the top of the cup and the bottom, it when it breaks and moves, and say it should move at a minimum this $50. So it makes this 172. But when you have a handle, the handle can come down, go up, come as long as you match this over here. If it were to break, say 100, it sort of invalidates this pattern. The pattern only is a probability as long as the pattern exists. So even a pull back to 115, it may hurt short term. It doesn't, even 110, even 105, it doesn't invalidate this pattern, people. And all I was showing over here is this is today's chart, right? Because when I take the time to write all this, it's more work to come in on top of the chart and write all that. It's easier, especially if you then paste it into Excel. It's a lot of work, guys, to do all this stuff for you. But I feel it's stuff I do for myself. I just don't put it in something so you can see it. I like to stay on top of it. That's what you get from me. You get technical analysis, fundamental analysis, payment. I mentioned that PLTW has a more stable NAV. Because people say to me, well, if that's true, why are you in Pulte? Well, I just did the analysis a few days ago to find out for myself because I, like a lot of you, okay, I looked at five, six, I look at $3, $4, and $5 payments on a $70 stock. They have a $40 stock, PLTW, somewhere in there, and they're paying, remember, it's weekly, 40 cents, 50 cents. Multiply that times 4.3, you don't get to this. But when I did the detailed analysis, right, that's the value of total return. What did I find? I found that in PLTW, they had a more stable. So even though Pulte yielded a lot more money, hence yield max, maximum yield, the NAV existed. Well, I saw that in the charts, like Pulte didn't go back to the high. If you look at this scenario, look at this on Palantir, okay? Look at this. So it went down, then it went back right there, and then it went above. If you look at Pulte is sitting over here. Like if this was the same chart, the prices wouldn't be the same. It's like halfway here. It's not back up to its highs. Pulte here, PLTY was 94, and then it got as low as 45. Well, it's only 67, right? It can't pay $6 and $7 the way they do the work and recover. So it will be interesting, and watch that video if you haven't, is this new strategy that YIELDMAX applied for. Will it reduce the NAV? Well, if it reduces the NAV and stabilizes it, you're not going to earn as much money, right? What I do is I make sure I own Palantir as much or more than I own Pulte. just the little I'm in PLTY, and it's my largest income, high yield fund by far, gives me more income than I can even spend in a month, nor or need. Remember, I'm living in Asia. I'm retired. I don't even spend all my Social Security over here, and I have all that other income. So living is large over here, and I chose to do that. Not everybody can do that. You may have grandkids, you may still have grown children that you'd miss. That wasn't my case, so I was able to do that. But I absolutely love it. Wouldn't change that part of my life at all. So anyway, guys, that's what I got for you. Let me know if I'm missing something, something else you want to see. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all the new subscribers. I know I've been cranking out content. I can see from your comments it's much appreciated. You like it. I'm going to grow this channel. People are asking me for my own portfolio. I know this is getting long in the tooth. Apologize. Just go with you. There's nothing else earth-shaking I'm going to tell you. But if you do want to hear what I stick on, so don't tell me I'm rambling on. You always have the option to stop. Point is, people ask me for my portfolio. I'm a little sensitive to that. I may do that on a per charge basis where I go out and I forget the names of the tools to do that. It wouldn't be a membership. It would be probably a Patreon or something, because then that adds a lot of work. Guys, I own 30 positions alone just in precious metal miners, and everyone's got a story, and they're all in different categories. Big cap, second largest gold miner in the world, gold and silver miner. I got little junior explorers that I think have a 20 or 50x potential, right? If you didn't sign it, some of the guys, by the way, I do a lot in mining besides the YIELDMAX and the Defiance and the Round Hills and the granites and the neos and a few others. I analyze a lot of stuff. I can do that. This is my full-time job being an investor. I just decided to do a YouTube because I love options and I love it. And I've taught a few people. I've had people come to me privately on the channel and said, hey, could you teach me options? I charged somebody like $75 an hour. So I just did it more to help somebody. I mean, I spent $4,500 on a 3-day options course back in the early 80s, people. And then I had a hotel and travel on top of it, right? So it probably cost me 6,000. There's a lot more tools and ways to do it now. But you got to practice it no matter what course you go through. And when it's just dry watching a video, it's hard. That's why I try and teach when I'm showing you spreads and explaining to what it really means. Some of you are sharp. Some of you are on this and you ask me sophisticated questions, and that's cool too. I love that. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. But on that idea of the portfolio, my portfolio you wouldn't even understood it if I showed it to you unless you were knowledgeable in each area. You would understand that I own Coney and Tesla and PLTY and GDXY, but you might not understand the miners and understand the difference of the categories and run out and put a market order in for a little OTC pink sheets stock that I think has 20 to 50x potential that I'm already up 4x, so I'm on house money, right? So it needs a lot of explanation and time on that. That's why I'm hesitant but look, if you watch my mining one, I just built a playlist. Somebody asked me last night, hey, you talk about miners and you had a good day and you're up this, 10%, 15%, 18% on 3 different miners. What are they? Where's your videos? So I didn't realize I didn't have a playlist. So now there's a playlist with my last 8 videos on miners. And you know that if you watch any of those videos, that I'm super bullish on the commodity super cycle that we're in now and will only get better. All right, guys, I know this is long in the tooth. I'm going to let you go. Bye for now. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. All right, Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation saying bye for now.